My dream and my passion was always to relieve the suffering of the dedicated seeker. That was obviously my own biggest pain. I did not know how to relieve myself from suffering even after 23 years on the spiritual path. So that became my biggest desire and ultimately my legacy. Emotional suffering, psychological suffering is a big chunk of the self-realization process. And I know, not only from personal experience, but from the students that I work with and I have been working with for the past 10 years, is that emotional suffering is a great pain and hindrance in our realization process when we don't know how to deal with it in the simplest, purest way. There are many modalities out there in this sea of information about emotional suffering, but the purest, simplest, most direct way is to simply be the presence of awareness within which that suffering appears. So the first thing that you need in order to realize the healing, as we call it, the integration of that emotional pain that has been triggered by situations in your life, is to know thyself, to know yourself as the presence, ever-present, infinite awareness or pure being. That is what is going to facilitate to make it real for you, the dissolving of those parts in yourself that still are in separation. They hold beliefs that keep them in a belief, in a state of separation. So the first thing you need is to know yourself as infinite awareness, to take the stand within your felt understanding. That also requires for you to know your true nature as infinite awareness, to know it through direct experience, to live it, so that you can take that stand anytime and be with that painful part of yourself. In order for it to dissolve, you need to be able to hold that space of awareness that you are in the presence of the emotional pain that arises within you, fully receive it, fully accept it, for it to really release that contraction that is basically the pain, the separation. And these layers of trauma traces are, the deepest root of them are in the body. So we want to do that by releasing them from the body. And I talked about how to do that in my past 2 videos. And if you are a dedicated seeker, you know that emotional healing is just such a big part of our journey, and knowing how to handle it easily, gracefully, lovingly, it is such a relief. So for this video, I wanted to synthesize some of the most important challenges that you might encounter in your emotional healing practices or process. So, as I said, the first thing you need is to know yourself as infinite awareness, to know how to be knowingly the presence of awareness within which that pain arises. And then you just receive it and accept it fully, breathe emptiness or love through it, without having any agenda in the background to get rid of it. So I would say that probably the biggest challenge, or the first challenge that may arise when such a trigger, such a pain has been triggered, is to not resist it. That would be the first challenge. Pay attention to see if you in any way have a reaction that is not, it's usually subconscious, to resist it, to stop it, to hide away from it, to make it go away. If that happens, know that that's not the solution. We want to go in the opposite direction here and open up fully to receive it. As infinite awareness, you don't have any preference to experience. Any experience is welcomed. So you remind yourself of that and you open up fully to receive that, to accept that suffering as it actually is. The next, so this would be the first, to not resist it. The next, or the simultaneous reaction, subconscious reaction that appears, is to think this is something bad. The fact that now I am experiencing sadness, it's bad. I am not supposed to, or I shouldn't feel whatever I feel. That is not how we deal with it, but that reaction may be there. So you may want to be aware that that arises. And the moment we feel this is bad, we immediately contract. And we want to get rid of that which arose, that experience that we're having, right? And so that's something that you want to catch on and relax that contraction, because it's nothing bad at all. On the contrary, that such an emotional pain was triggered. It means that layer is ready to be seen and released. So we now deal with them as adults and mature beings, infinite eternal beings, and we receive them as parts of ourselves that are suffering, instead of hiding away from them, neglecting them, looking away, wanting to get rid of them. So the second thing will be to not fall for the thought that may arise that this is bad, I have to do something to get rid of this because this means something wrong about myself, the fact that I'm experiencing that emotional pain that was triggered. And that is how the mind tries to pull you into the story. So resistance and belief that this is it means something bad. When you've gone through that and you're aware, I am here to be with this part of me that is now crying for attention and love and acceptance, I acknowledge and I am knowingly being the presence of awareness within which this emotion arises, and just I let it fully be what it is. Just being this welcoming, loving space of awareness, or container of awareness, if you will, within which that emotion is free to be there, fully accepted, fully received, with no hidden agenda to get rid of it, just full acceptance. And that in itself sometimes simply dissolves that contraction in the body that holds that separation belief, that pain. As I said, I've explained this in the previous videos. I am now talking about the challenges that may arise. So once you've acknowledged yourself as the presence of awareness within which this pain arises, and you're just accepting it and it starts to dissolve, this may take a while. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it doesn't. It is a unique process for each of us. What you want to do is to just hold that presence of awareness that you are knowingly, hold it knowingly, aware when the mind comes in to pull you into a story, to give you explanations of why you feel in that way, or how to make it go away, or what caused it, or who is to blame, right? Because that's another trap, placing blame on somebody else because of what we are feeling. But what you feel is within you. It is yours to deal with. Nobody is to blame for whatever you are feeling. It is something that arises within you. And the cause of it is not important. That is a story. The label of it is not important. You don't need to label it, to name it. I know that some exercises do that, but this is the purest way in which you can deal with it. So you don't need to go into the story, you don't need to go into the past experiences, into childhood trauma, into forgiving something or somebody. Because once you just be with that part of you and it starts to dissolve, any story that is attached to it also dissolves. So you don't need to pay attention to the story. Not necessarily. Mostly it's not required. Because if you get pulled up into the story, you just get distracted from the actual experience in the body of that pain. And the actual experience is the reality of our experience. What we are experiencing is the real, not what we are believing about the experience. So this is the third major challenge, or the fourth if you will, not to allow the mind to pull you into the story, any kind of story, any kind of thought process. You just go to the feeling, to the experiencing of it in the body. I hear many people say, why did this happen to me right now? That why is not relevant to your experience. The fact that it's happening is perfect. It means it is an opportunity for you to take your stand and knowingly be the presence of awareness and integrate that part of you that is crying for your attention, that is crying to be seen. It's aching to be seen and fully accepted and received. So it's always an opportunity, it's not a curse. So if you want to feel deeply confident that you know how to deal with these when they arise, you first need to take your stand as infinite awareness. That is imperative. Otherwise, you're just going to find yourself lost in the mind or lost in the pain, right? In the story about it or in the pain of it, in the suffering of it. So the reason why we want to deal with these in a way that we are aware of what is happening and we are aware what we can do about it in the most pure, beautiful way is because they're always going to be there and they're always going to come up, and we don't want to be destabilized and we don't want to suffer, right? We don't want to hide away from them, because when we do, they just come back more powerful as they build up. The more we ignore them, the more they build up and the more painful that burst or emotional upheaval will be the next time, and so on. So I know that you're already aware that that is necessary, and that's why you are here for. So let's move on to the next challenge or thing to be aware of. One way we can think about these emotional pains or trauma traces or even karma. These are karma pockets that sit in that are deeply rooted in our body, and they bring about those situations that trigger them in order for us to see them. And you can think about it as being flushed out. They're being flushed out by the presence of awareness in order to clear out these layers of karma, these veils of ignorance, in other words, so that we can expand more into who we are, into being who we truly are as infinite awareness, and see reality more clearly without these veils that hinder our view of reality. They're like tinted glasses that don't allow us to see reality how it is. For example, a belief, I'm not good enough, it's gonna mold your behavior and your mindset, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you behave, the way you act, right? Everything, every such limiting belief that is ultimately a belief of separation is going to shape your experience and ultimately your behavior. That's why we want to just open up, free ourselves up, and contribute to our self-realization process by intentionally mending or taking care, tending to these parts that come up. So when they come up, it's such a good opportunity. If you can't take care of that in the instant when it comes up, it's fine, of course. You can take care of it later, but the next challenge that I see some of the people may encounter is to not be able to actually find that in the body. So when you have a reaction, a painful emotional reaction to something, it doesn't matter what it is, it always has a correspondence in the body. You can feel it in the body somewhere. Don't think about that. Just go be with your body and allow yourself to feel that emotional pain instead of running away from it, instead of resisting it, pushing it away. And when you be with it, you will immediately feel where is it vibrating in your body. And just give yourself time and patience. Just be open and tender and loving and kind and gentle when you do this process. And you're going to get there. If you have difficulty and you can't find your way out, feel free to join our this year Academy of Being program that's called From Seeking to Being. It's the 2025 self-realization year. I am so excited to, for the first time, put everything that I know into a distilled, incredibly direct and roadmap, basically, for the dedicated seekers, so that you have everything you need in one place for your self-realization process. And that is not a lot. It's only 4 pillars that you need to master. Actually 3, because the 4th is the mastery of the 3. And you will know how to navigate your realization process with everything that life brings your way. You will know how to master and have that peace of mind and contentment and certainty that you know what you're doing and you know where you're going and you know what all of this is about and how to interpret and integrate every single experience that comes your way. From this position as the aware being that you are. So another challenge would be when you are in the process of healing, you've located that contraction in the body, that vibration in the body, you are being with it, the aware presence of awareness, knowingly, you are holding it. The mind can come in with stories, a train of thought, excuses, justifications, blame, shame, as I said, to distract you. That is only story. Stay with the experience. Stay with the experience is the way it feels. What do you feel in your body from that emotional pain? Because when you completely ignore the story and completely just be with the experience of it in the body, what you'll find that there is no more pain. It's only a neutral sensation. The pain goes away when you just ignore the story. So the challenge is staying with the experience and not being pulled into the story. So it's a sort of a vigilance that you apply, that you have, and you gain this more and more with practice, of course. Doesn't matter how many words I can tell you here about this, if you don't actually experience it and practice it and go through it yourself, you will not be able to master this and really understand what's going on. You will find your own way of dealing with this. These are just indicators, the most potent ones, I might say, that is going to help you through this process. So you don't ask why, you just go and be with the experience. It's gonna be, for some, difficult to actually differentiate and separate thinking from the actual experience, which is being and feeling that, sensing that sensation in the body that is associated with the emotional pain. Another challenge that might come up is that you feel incredibly overwhelmed by the emotion. When you feel that it's overwhelming and you just feel like you have to find your way out, the way out, there's no way out anyway. What you do then is just remind yourself to take the stand of the infinite awareness that you are and open up that space. Open up the space, and now that pain has more space to be there. It doesn't feel, you don't feel suffocated by it anymore. You don't feel smaller than it or one with it. You now open up the space and it can be there, and you can get a relief from that, and then engage into the emotional healing process or peeling process as I have described. This is similar to the metaphor of peeling off the onion layers of karma, of veils of ignorance, to get to that shining core of who we are. And the more we peel these veils off, the more that light shines through the remaining veils, more and more and more, dissolving them. That is the conditioning. Now, one very important thing to understand when you're doing this is that if you know yourself as the presence of awareness, it means the goal has been achieved. Doing the emotional healing is just an auxiliary treatment, if you will, that we can do to contribute to our realization process. The end goal has been achieved. So there's nothing to achieve. You know yourself as infinite awareness. The fact that this emotion come up doesn't mean anything about yourself, infinite awareness. It doesn't mean that you're failing in being the infinite awareness. It doesn't feel that you have forgotten that you are infinite awareness. Only in the instant when you identify with the emotion, but then you quickly just trace your way back to yourself. And again, if you don't know how to do that, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, that's something you learn inside the Academy of Being. And our 2025 self-realization year, and the theme for it is From Seeking to Being, begins in February the 4th. Registration is now open. Spots are limited because we want to ensure a personalized, intimate group setting. So go ahead, reserve your spot now if you are someone who wants to streamline your self-realization process and finally have that sense of embodiment of your true essential nature as infinite awareness. This is what we offer inside the Academy of Being in this academic year. It's a 9-month intensive, extremely practice focused. It is everything in one place to get you the clarity that is going to relieve immense suffering and confusion from your path, uncertainty, unclarity, and all pain that arises from not knowing exactly where you are and what tool to use to really experience that lasting peace and joy that is your essential nature. Go to the link below this video if you want more details about this. Send us an email if you have questions. Now, sacrificing our thoughts and emotions, so the pain and the story, to the presence of awareness is always, well, especially in the beginning, going to be a challenge, because the more you do this, the more you don't need to sacrifice anything, because now you are, if I can say that, delighted to be the presence of awareness no matter what arises in your experience. So it's no longer a choice or an actual effort or intention to sacrifice your thoughts and emotions to the presence of awareness. It becomes the default, it becomes the natural way of being with every experience of life. And that is something so beautiful and reassuring to discover. The more you do this, the more at peace you are that you can handle anything that comes your way. Because now you know yourself as the infinite, eternal awareness that is bigger, larger than anything that may arise in your experience. So the more you do it, the clearer the process is going to become for you. It can't become any clear if you don't actually practice it, do it, put it into action. And the easier it's going to become to notice the mind coming in, trying to distract you from the actual experience. That is which allows the healing, the releasing, the dissolving, the integrating of that part that is in separation, being with it experientially. And now know that when the mind comes up and is trying to distract you from what you're doing, that is a good sign, because it means that what you're doing works. That's why the mind comes up, trying to hide that part that is in suffering. This is the separate self trying to hide itself because it lives in fear. Sometimes, of course, you don't need to go through all of this process. Sometimes just being aware of the pain that arises or the reaction that was triggered in you, and just that instant when you shift from the actual experience and pain of the emotion that has been triggered to the awareness that I am aware, it just completely dissolved that pain instantly. So you no longer need to go through any kind of other process. If that's the case, great. But one way to check is to repeat that, or bring into mind that person who has triggered that pain in you, and see if there's anything else that resonates, if there's any resistance left. If there's any resistance left, it means there's still some contraction there to be released. A trauma trace, a pain. So don't give in to the impulse to blame another for your own pain. Your own pain has been triggered. You are feeling that pain because it has been there all along, and this person or situation has been attracted to you in order for you to support you to see that pain that is hidden inside of your body, is rooted in your body. So refrain from blaming someone else. Refrain from going into the story, into thinking about it. It's an endless loop that can come up and explain and justify and give you scenarios and arguments and all of that about the pain. Not interested. Ignore that fully and just go to the experience of it in the body and be with it. So don't give in to the temptation to go into the mind. Don't give in to the temptation to blame someone. Don't give in to the temptation to believe that there's something wrong about the fact that you feel a pain, an emotional pain, or it's rather something wrong about you because you feel emotional pain. That's not true. I know we've been taught otherwise. We've been taught to hide these emotions because they mean weakness or defect or other these type of things. But the truth is, because you've now opening up, this pain feels safe enough to show itself to you. That's how the process is happening. So be happy, be grateful, accept them, receive them, integrate them. So these contraction layers that are in the body, hidden in the body, they not only cloud our clarity about ourselves and reality, the nature of reality, but these layers of fear, shame, blame, guilt, grief, sadness, anger, betrayal, humiliation, you name it, there's so many kind of pains, right? They basically hold us back from living fully. Those contractions are like contracting us when such situation arises, and we don't feel safe or free to fully be ourselves in the moment if we allow those contractions to define who we are. So taking the stand as the presence of awareness is what is relieving you from being identified with that, for being limited to that emotion or pain or limiting belief that you are experiencing. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that there's no one to blame because we are bearing or holding or carrying these emotional suffering roots. This has not been imposed onto us. This is how consciousness welcomes experience. For consciousness, for yourself, your essential nature. Experience is simply experience. It's not good or bad. It's not gray or light. It's just experience. And that is what we remind ourselves here by taking our stand as infinite awareness, because there's no judgment there, there's no resistance there. There's just full, open, empty, still, loving space as the presence of awareness. So if that speaks to you, if this is something you would really like to have for yourself, join us for the 2025 year of self-realization, from seeking to being. It's a whole year, 3-trimester program that is incredible, unique, because of the 4 pillars that we use to navigate the 3 essential stages of the self-realization process. So I truly believe it's unique because the clarity that you receive for navigating your realization process, it's unheard of, because you have everything in one place, because everything is coherent, connected together, so that you can understand where you're at, what do you need to do, what are the tools, what is the understanding, how to integrate. So if this speaks to you, as I said, spots are limited to 20 people. I like to keep our groups very small so that we can have that intimate connection, so that I can address you personally as well in our live calls. I also integrated 3 one-on-one sessions, which is unheard of in this type of offering, because I want to make sure that all of your challenges are being addressed personally, directly, and you can receive the guidance tailored to your own direct understanding and experience in a more direct way. So there's one one-on-one session per each trimester. Also, there's the community group where we are having our conversations. You have the support, the inspiration from other people sharing on their own journey. And there's also an early bird incentive for people who want to join for the full payment. To find out more about all of these, please go to the link below this video. I don't think there's any better time than now to really streamline your self-realization process and step out of the struggling and the seeking and start thriving in your self-realization process with the clarity, with the deep experience and the deep understanding that comes from that experience. It's just invaluable. And I am so honored and glad to be able to offer this to the dedicated seeker that is yourself. So I hope to see you inside the Academy. Registration is open. I will see you there.